Welcome one and all to the fourth session, or third session of today, about Elliot's scholarship and contributions to Tibetan studies. We originally had planned for 5 speakers here, but Ben Martin's flight was canceled, and so he couldn't make it. So hopefully we'll have him here some other time. We have 4 speakers. They will each come up here to the podium or speak from over there at the table, depending on what they want to do. And then after each one gives a talk, we will have some time, not a lot, for questions and answers. So our first speaker is Professor Sperling, who is, of course, I'll introduce him anyway, who is Canada Research Chair in Religion and Contemporary Society in Asia at the Institute of Asian Research at the University of British Columbia. He's been serving also as the president of the International Association of Tibetan Studies since 2013. And his son, Riga Shakya, is the guy you saw taking the cab to Jackson Heights. We asked each of the scholars to choose one contribution or a set of contributions that Elliot has made over the years to Tibetan studies, and explain this choice and contextualize it for us. Some of our presenters have a PowerPoint and others do not. So the first choice, and we will begin with that, is Sperling choice of this article by Elliot that was published many a year ago.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here in the presence of so many friends of Elliot and students, and I'm also deeply saddened that Elliot is not here. We were just as a president. Elliot is in the board of International Association of Tibetan Studies, and I'm the president. And last half years we've been debating where our next meeting should be held and discussion. And there was 2 proposals, one from Prague and one from Paris. And Elliot was very passionate that we should hold a meeting in Prague, the next meeting. But the decision was up to me, so Elliot was bombarding me, lobbying for Prague meeting. And Elliot's final argument to me was, think of 2 Tibetans over beer or wine. And the beer is cheaper than water in Prague. And we left with that, and we were meet in New York. In last few weeks ago, I was invited by Lauren and colleague and friends of Elliot to give a talk at Columbia, and we had arranged to meet in Columbia and talk about our next meeting, and I was trying to think of a way to convince wine Tibetan. We have to slowly introduce Tibetan to wine drinking. And unfortunately that was not the be. But I'm also fortunate to every year somewhere in the world we are always meeting up together for a conference or for and last July we were in Bergen in Norway, and every ITS meeting we met, and remember all members of being in Ulaanbaatar. I went to Mongolia 2 times with Elliot, and last meeting was in Mongolia for the International Association of Studies. And then I think so meeting Elliot has I never got to tell him actually. It's really great significance to me personally for my intellectual and academic developments. And this, particularly because of its significance in my own sort of interest in Tibetan history, really comes from this first article Elliot wrote about Red Army's encounter with Tibet in the experience of Long March. Now, this article was published in 1977, many years before many of you were born, and many of our students presented this morning. I don't think they were born when Elliot published this article. And this article is in 1970s and 80s, before age of internet, there were not many journals and publications for Tibetan scholars to publish. And Tibetan Review was one of the first place where we newly sort of minted PhD students or people who had the opportunity to publish their articles. And this actually magazine journal only last month sees the publication in hard copy. So it's no longer published, it's only now exists online form, but more as a news report rather than sort of a journal for contributing from academics. But in the 70s, this journal was really very significant and important. Herostratus and Leganes, Listener, Philip Denwood, everybody wrote for this magazine, and I published my first articles in this magazine journal, and it had also a very well-known Paulo, who was one of the first editors, then Srimon and Srimon was a student in England, and he went back and he became the editor of the review. And unfortunately, our good friend Jamyan Nobu is not here. Jamyan was one of the major contributors in this journal. And I was, at that time, I was a schoolboy in England, and I was thinking what I should do. And I was very interested in history, and I wanted to study Tibetan history. But when I looked at all the sort of publications on Tibetan history, it was mainly focused on religion, as you know. I wanted to know something sort of meaty, something exciting, about contemporary stuff. And when I saw that I was that time as a schoolboy, I also did some interest in early Tibetan communists. So there weren't any publications of early Tibetan communists who were there, because I kept seeing these names mentioned in Chinese publications, but I really didn't know much about who they were, trying to find sources. And when Elliot's article comes to market, it's really interesting that there were some sources he was using and information that he was, and it alerted me to the God, I have to study Chinese. Elliot is all using the Chinese sources to go to study. Now, Long March has become very important in communist mythology and contemporary communist history. And the party makes a great deal out of this situation. And if you search online in any of the journals, there's a huge number of articles published on the Communist Party Long March. But there are hardly any related subject to the Tibet. And the communist, the sort of PLA's entry into Tibetan areas in Gansu and in Kham is hardly covered. But it's very significant. There's a statement in Elvis No's Red Star over China. It's a very significant statement. Chairman Mao says, only debt the Chinese Communist Party owes to is what the Tibetans for saving the communists, the PLA during the Long March. And I made a great deal out of this short sentence, because Chairman Mao said only foreign debt we owe is to the Tibetans. And I thought, why was the Tibetans foreign to Mao? They did not regard it. And I was trying to search for Ekasuno, and I wrote before the people, I want to know, is it Ekasuno translated the word foreign? What was Mao using when he said foreign? So if the communists were considered the Tibetan was, they entered the Tibetan territory, they were entering the foreign territory. And this is very much evident in Elliot's life, that the PLA's first entry into communist entry into the Tibetan area to exploit themselves in foreign territory. And this is continuously reflected in contemporary Chinese writing, when tourists going into Tibetan area, they almost feel a sense of entering in a foreign territory. They don't, despite this sort of the political claims of unity and the thing, but they actually culturally, when they enter Tibetan territory, it is a foreign territory. And this sense, which Elliot explores in the article, and you will see that in many of his academic writing, he explores that the Tibet is foreign, even during the Qing period or earlier period. Tibet stood as the other to China. It's not the same in that way. So that is a very significant to me. Other aspect what I found why the article made such impression me as a schoolboy was at the time history writings on Tibet was entirely based on the British colonial record, in particular modern period, which is you look at August Lamp, the Miller, a number of these scholarly articles, but that focus simply on British archival research. They don't use any Tibetan or Chinese sources during that. And after that, Elliot published another article that was the last stage of Qing Fang's sort of campaign in Kham and then entry into Tibet. He again focused purely on Chinese language sources in that. And again, this period is very well covered in British archive sources, but only from the British English language material, not from Chinese sources. So Elliot again reintroduced the Chinese language sources and Tibetan language sources in covering that very critical period of Tibetan history. So Elliot has really made, as you see on the social media and the internet, tremendous sort of outpouring of sadness and celebrations of Elliot life by young Tibetans. It is really unprecedented that there's so many young Tibetans were engaged by Elliot's work. Because I think Elliot's publication, his talks, he empowered them in a sense. He said to the Tibetans, you have a history. Your argument cannot just be sort of slogans. Your argument is embedded in a deep historical research and historical understanding of our own condition. And that really impressed the young Tibetans. Not only that Elliot showed it, how it is done through his publication. And that sort of impact I had in wanting, when I was in high school in England and wishing to study history. It was the same reason that Elliot was trying to do, to say, whatever problem Tibet may have, whether it was backwards, whether it was pre-modern, it has cruelty, but it is our own making, it's our own history, that we were the agents of that history. So that, in a sense, I felt Elliot's writing, not during this sort of contemporary period, but in the larger history, the older period which other colleagues will speak about, he focused very much on the Tibetan agency, to place Tibet as the center of history and the maker of that history. And for that, I'm forever grateful for Elliot. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have time for maybe one or two questions, if anyone has something that they wish to ask.
I want to thank you for the word history, and was a really important word, which I thought was not emphasized very much, because I always thought that
Elliot's significance in Tibetan studies was also that he was, as you said, a historian in a field that is really very heavily dominated by religious studies, which is incredibly important in Tibet, but it's not the whole story. I wonder if you'd also want to talk about Elliot also, and this was something he was also, and I think this was touched on, but his studies of and he didn't publish so much about it, but many of us we heard about. He was very involved with, and he knew the exile government very well from the inside, and I think that's also something that you studied. And I wonder if you could maybe talk a little bit about how that did his approach to that, did it influence you in ways that are maybe not visible in publications, but were things that he talked about informally, perhaps?
Thank you. When I met Elliot, we always sort of had sort of this funny sort of what a counterfactual history, what might have happened if something had done. And one of the conversations I remembered, and I put it on my Facebook, and I said that, and Elliot said, imagine if the mullahs in Iran had been reading history, and they sort of, Iran sort of, if the Chinese claim Tibet is part of China because of the Yuan dynasty and Kublai Khan, and I should have said, Iran could make similar case because the western half of Tibet was under Huluku and run from Iran, and they said, they could say that Tibet is part of Iran because it was even in all Tibetan history, even Phil Dallam's history says 15 districts of Tibet was under the administration of Huluku. So we always try to imagine, the mullahs had read the history and say, this is the western half is about Tibet. So we sort of the focus on that history. And one of the reasons Elliot is so engaged with Tibetans, and not only Tibetans in diaspora, because when Elliot's passing, the news of Elliot's passing reached me, I sent a message to friends in Lhasa, and they said that they're going to Jerman to offer a butterland in there. It was very moving for the art material. Because what Elliot did in terms of diaspora communities are very much romanticize our own community as passive, Buddhist, and peaceful, Catholic, and the sort of very sort of image that we portray ourselves and essentialize ourselves. And often Elliot would, to speaking to Tibetan community, will bring a very uncomfortable aspect of Tibetan history, that it's like the violence involved in Tibet. They have monasteries who are engaged in violence. And one of the talks he gave about the debate within the Tibetan literature about whether this is Sanjay Gyatso was a son of Fifth Dalai. So, that is sort of very provocative to Tibetan, and the Tibetans young never heard of this sort of thing. And they would say, oh, this is just a Western, there's a yellowhead people making this thing up, there are no Tibetan sources. And we said, no, actually these are all coming out of Tibetan sources in that. He said, well, this is contemporary of DC, it's Lem, the Namdar, Chevados Namdar, who was friend of DC, he writes in his Namdar that there's a rumor that he's a son. So Tibetans got very startled by the way Elliot engaged. So that for young people it was empowering, that sense of we don't have to be this Catholic banker and so on. Other ways, it's very passionate critique of Tibetan diaspora, the exile movement, is way we have self-centralized as peaceful Buddhist people, and the way Buddhism has now become some sort of psychoanalytical New Age religion that he was very passionate critique. That sometimes offended the Tibetan diaspora elite, but actually it's really empowered the young people to think that we don't have to be peaceful Buddhists.
so much. I just wanted to ask you like 2 questions, just kind of as a follow-up. I know you met Elliot a long time ago, and you mentioned reading this article, but one, I was just wondering if you could elaborate on the first time that you 2 met. And then the second thing I wanted to ask you is, I know Elliot, in conversations with him, he would often talk about how diversified the field of Tibetan studies has become in his years. Like the first meeting in Oxford was just a small group of people, and how, at UBC and then in Mongolia, it was just, 700, 900 people attending IAS. And I was just wondering if you could, elaborate on where you think Tibetan studies is going today, because I know that was a concern of the students yesterday, and I think it would just be wonderful to hear some words from you.
A few years ago, now I don't remember, there was at Berkeley, there was a conference on Tulkus and reincarnation. And after I was there was all the Buddhologists were there. And Elliot and I stood out from all that, because all other presentation was so esoteric, it's so psychoanalytical and religious. And Elliot would just say, well, historically, they just killed each other. We just said reincarnation, how they determine, not about divination only. Who got more guns, and who fought who. And ultimately, Tulkus got installed because the other side got a bigger army. So we were sort of puncturing this one with a very factual, historical sort of thing, where everyone was presenting this very esoteric religious explanations. And this is what we stood out, because we tend to look at it. I presented a paper on dual disputes between different lineages and how disputes were settled, and Elliot did use how Qing got involved in the selections of the dual. So we were presenting it. Of course, then we are accused of being sort of a what you call a weak historian or materialistic historian, and not taking the account of this sort of the underpinning of religious assumptions. But we can't say that it's a material condition under which people are selected. They are not, ultimately these things have to be decided in terms of power or social issues. So still, Tibetan study is dominated by religious studies and religious history, and slowly it's shifting. Now we have another tradition that is more of what I call the sociological tradition, which is through anthropology that is emerging. But really, in terms of the study of history, it still hasn't really emerged. There isn't established sort of Western historiography of Tibetan history. We are still very much relying on sort of religious historiography in that. And if you look at almost all, it would be impressive. The book Robert Vitale edited really timely publication 2 years ago, and I wrote about going to be the article on Tibetan bandits. And Elliot was very pleased with the article, and he said, "Oh, I really like the article." He said, "Why didn't you tell me this before I went to Nurture?" He said he didn't know when he went to Nurture all these events I described in my contribution, that he didn't know, and he was very pleased. And he was saying, we need that kind of more history, about local history, or what we want different parts of Tibet. And now a lot of young Tibetan people think, what is Hall Soku, 39 tribes of Hall, and people are interested in that. So it's one good thing I see in the contemporary is the relatively circulation of academic articles beyond the sort of paid journals and paid walls, and it's been reaching much more wider audience, and that is contributing to people more interested in history.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is Roberto Vitali, who is known, I'm sure, to many of you as one of the great contributors to the study of Tibetan history, art, artifacts, also religion, if we can separate artificially between all of them. And he's worked for many years in many different libraries and archives around the world. And, Robbie, please.
Yeah. Can I make a small digression since Dan is not around? Okay, this is the incriminated piece of evidence. It's the face sheet for Elliot. I have several anecdotes. I don't know if I should share them with you. At least one, which is a little funny. People rang me in Uppsala when we were finishing to do this, were telling me, Robbie, don't be childish. Elliot knows about you. So why don't you fix a date so he comes? Some other people said, Robbie, don't spoil the surprise. You know, say. And so the time was coming that the book had to be released. So finally I called Elliot on Skype, and I used the meanest lie possible. He has a good friend in Uppsala. He's one of his historical friends, Peter Brown, who is also a New Yorker like him. We all call him Campa Peter. He's someone who is crazy. He knows everything about contemporary issues, negotiates 21 volumes by the same Tibetan author, all this. So I called Elliot and I told him, look, Elliot, there's something happening here, really serious. And I think I must tell you. Pete Campa Peter misbehaved with a Machari girl. And Elliot said, how come he didn't tell me? And I said, of course, Peter is a bit shameful about his behavior. So the point is, you are his historical friend, you must come to Uppsala because he has to fix the damage done. So it's you must come quick because, the marriage should be celebrated. And he was really cynical. He didn't say, sorry, I have university commitments. Can you tell Peter to postpone the marriage? And I told him, look, she's delivering. You have to come. So finally, I had to tell him, and he was so much taken by this that he grabbed a bottle of wine and started drinking wine from the bottle. And he couldn't believe that this was happening, that he had this incriminated piece of evidence. And many of you have been contributing to this. So first of all, I have to thank Rapsela because he helped me with his moral support. Nicole has helped me very much in many practical manners. And many of you people who are sitting here have been contributing articles to the issues. So that's my digression. So now I have to speak about this. No, wait. So I picked up this topic. I feel slightly shameful because here in the room there are great experts on this topic. I try to speak about Elliot's contribution on this issue, and I don't know, later we can discuss what are the further developments on this topic, which is quite important. Sorry, I read because I feel very uncomfortable speaking in public, so I need to help myself with some words. So in the long years he spent in the studies, Elliot has adopted a steady working method, which I would like to summarize in a few words. He has based himself on primary sources, has privileged history over other fields of research, has put philology at the service of history, has seen matters almost invariably religious in the Tibetan tradition from a secular perspective, and has chosen topics in Tibetan history mainly with secular rather than religious connotations. Relations between the Tangut kingdom and Tibetan lamas are a theme that embodied the guidelines he had set for himself. Their intellectual potential led him to pen a piece as early as 1987 Raise a hand who was born after that. Most of you. There you. Article on the Tangut Kingdom several decades before, in 1951, in which he mainly touched geography and legendary aspects surrounding the land. But I think that Stan's work arguably was the precondition to Elliot's interest in the topic. It was what Elliot found in the Tibetan literature available in those days concerning these masters' engagement in the affairs of the Tangut Kingdom that had set the basis in that first article of our historiographical knowledge of the East. He had brought matters to the historical arena, in particular the relations during the late 12th and early 13th century, when they reached an apex with a mix of both intensity and decadence. However, the matter goes back to a long time before. The Dong tribe, to which the Tangut belonged, was one major ethnic component of the Tibetan race. Tibetans share blood with the Tanguts. When groups of Dong tribe people established the Tangut state, the Changminyak of the Tibetans, the people of the new state looked at their counterparts on the Tibetan plateau as obvious interlocutors. The 12th century was the time when the Kagyupa schools blossomed in importance. So that's exactly the period when all this was happening. Disciples of Takpolaji Gampopa were among the greatest personalities the Kagyupa ever had. Yusum Khenpa, the first Karmapa, was from the Dong tribe itself, and precisely from the Ladong Karpo subgroup. Lama Shangyu Drapa belonged to the great Nanam clan, which provided queens and ministers, hence the collective name Shan, to the Tibetan kings of the imperial periods. Kyopa Jigten Gompo was the rebirth of Nagarjuna and Repachen. Barompa Dharma Wanchu descended from the great monk chief minister of Repachen, Tekapeti Yönsen, who was murdered by the anti-Buddhist faction. They were great masters who, either by birth or choice, brought their school to the east. Most of them interacted with the Tangut's kingdom in one way or the other. So Elliot has dedicated to the Tibet-Tangut interface a mini corpus of 4 articles, which kept him busy for some 30 years. So these are the 4 articles. The first in 87, Lama to the King of Shah, Samiloksawa, Sangye-Takpa, and the Tangut background to the early Mongol-Tibetan relations in 1994. Further remarks are proposed the Barompa and the Tangut, 2004. In the last one, the Tangut Minyak element in the lineage of the Sikkim Chögyal in 2011. So the Tangut-Tibet interface was his steady interest. This is why I go for this theme to talk about Elliot's scholar. I am glad I was chosen to speak about his intellectual output. I hardly can utter a single word on Elliot, my friend, and his human qualities without being overwhelmed by grief. In Lama to the King of Shah, Elliot could avail himself of a limited number of sources. Still, he found evidence of the contribution that Yusum Khenpa and Jigten Gompo offered to the Tangut king of those days, Taigu. The first Karmapa declined the king's invitation, but sent his disciple Tsansowa, who did much for the Buddhist activities in Changminyak. The Tigumpa master secured peace for the 10 years before Genghis Khan's first invasion of the Tangut kingdom, the one of 1206, owing to the donation of a statue of Champayan, Machugosha. By virtue of drawing attention to the Barompa school, Elliot's article of 1987 dealt with Barompa Dharma Wanchu, neglected till then in the studies, whose important activity in Khan opened the way to the Stoic feats of his disciple Tisrirepa. Tisrirepa was the one who defended, like no other Tibetan, the Tangut kingdom against Genghis Khan for some 20 years. However, Elliot's focus in this article was not so much on Genghis Khan's numerous attacks against the kingdom, but on the relations between those religious masters and the Tangut court. He ended his piece with a preliminary overview of Tangut people's migrations to various regions of Tibetan plateau after the destruction of Changyang. This next article, the one of 1994, Samuel Osawa, took a different direction, stepping back in time to the previous period, the early 12th century. Elliot focused on this master, helping to remove confusion about his ethnicity. Sami was a living proof of the closeness in their relations between Changyang and the Tibetans. Elliot adduced evidence from sources that Sami was by birth a Tangut transported to Tibet, who became a Tibetan to that effect. His great disciple, Pechengalo, was another example of this closeness. He was a Tangut born in Songkar. We don't know his birth date exactly, but he was somewhere around the early 12th century, which shows that Changyang had rights of extraterritoriality in areas of Amdo, so that Tangut people would settle there. Songkar figured consistently in the Tangut kingdom. The Amdo borderlands continued to be under Tangut control. Definitely, surely less substantiated are the Sikkimese assertions that they are descendants of the Tangut. Elliot pointed out in 2011 that not much is available on the matter, if not a simple linguistic confusion between the name of the first Tangut ruler and what is allegedly considered a Sikkimese ruler. In 1987 and 2004, Elliot touched marginally the role of Repa Karpu, the disciple of Tisrirepa and a Tangut himself, and Kublai Khan's activity in Changyang before becoming emperor. This is a complex and important historical matter requiring in-depth treatment. In 2 words, Repa Karpu's mission, the foundation of Nanchen, fulfilled in Khan his t-shirt vision, left to him by Tisrirepa just before death. Different from all other displacements, Nanchen was the continuation of Tisrirepa's work in Changyang, so that the Tangut tradition and the Tibetan support to the erstwhile kingdom would not disappear. Nanchen, therefore, was not born as an ethnic shelter, but as a bastion of the Tangut cultural heritage, the importance of the locality being recognized by Kublai Khan before he became ruler, an emperor. This opens up important historiographical consequences, which I'm dealing with in this period, given that there is much fresh Tibetan evidence on the Tangut kingdom and the aftermath of its downfall. As late as last year and the year before, in his Jackson Heights apartment, Elliot was still fiddling with material on Tangut and Tangut-related issues, and discussed them with me. I was expecting some new work on the Tibet-Tangut interface by him, but fate has decided otherwise. It's the game of life that creative people leave behind unaccomplished work. Rather than being fatalistic, I see optimum chances that Elliot's work will not be forgotten. Here in this room, there is a good number of recipients of his Karma transmission. His writings will last way more than all his articles on the Tibet-Tangut interface. This is abundantly proven here now today in this room. so that his term of transmission is secured too.
We're getting a bit pressed with time, so I think we will conclude here. And if you have questions for Robbie, you can, of course, always ask him. Well, not always. No, not always. Okay. Our next speaker is Pema Boom, who is, of course, also well known to, I imagine, everybody here. He's an author, a scholar, also the director of the Latze Library in New York, and also taught here at Indiana University in the 90s and then again in 2004.
Thank you. Gave me this chance. And to meet with Elliot, I then pleasant for two reasons. One is always, most of the time, we can learn something from him. And secondly, also make him laughing. Is really few Westerners. We make joke like Tibetans. We talk widely, and all. That way, meet with the help of them really pleasant. And when I was in Britain, one occasion, he mentioned one thing. And in Chinese, in Tang Dynasty, in Chinese documents say the Tibetan nation called Tubo. And when conversation, he said that pronunciation is wrong. Not Tubo, should be Tufan. And that's just statement. We didn't go to deeper and discuss. Also, I didn't get a chance to why it's not twofold, it's too bad. Before he passing away, I think about 1 month ago, we met again. I requested him to give a talk on our WeChat group. Our Latte have we call the Latte Tea House chatting group, and audience mostly 80% is from Tibet. And the most of our audience really hunger to listen Western scholars' openings. That way I asked them, could you give a talk on our WeChat? Then he said, no, because WeChat often Xi Jinping is listening WeChat. I said, that's fine. He can be our audience and member. That's a great thing if he listens. And then he's still very not. Even he told me, he suggested, rather, don't get on WeChat. That's not good stuff. Anyway, then he told me that he doesn't want to talk, but he gave me an article to post on WeChat. Then I said, that's also fine. Then he sent me one article in Chinese called "To What?" That's Chinese, and then English Tibet 明明的力量. That's in Chinese. I think the power of name of God and Tibet, something like that. And in this article, then he discussed that Tubo should be too far, that issue. Then, because this article is in Chinese, I didn't post in our WeChat because we suggest everybody writing in Tibetan and reading in Tibetan. We promote our language, Tibetan language. I remember all the audience should write in Tibetan. That way, I didn't post it. And then I got an invitation for this memory event, then I got a chance to read this article in Chinese. Yeah, his idea comes from French scholar. What is his name? The Elliot, and seems writing in 1915, I think, really early date. And Elliot thinks that should be too fat, should not be too bold. Okay, that's really big statement. Like me, I read that as a too bold for 40 years. I start from 1975. Then I read communist historian called, his name is Sperling, who wrote a Chinese history during the Yan'an time. Chinese communists still didn't seize power, still in struggle. That's I think the 1930s or 40s sometime. He wrote 4 volumes of the China history. In last volume, he talking about other aesthetic history. In which book, then there is a chapter called Tubo. Then all the Chinese, including Tibetan scholars, think that Tubo. Of course, this Elliot he wrote this article in 1915, probably that time also Tubo. That means generations of generation believe that Tubo, and not too far. And now, working 2 scholars, Elliot and Elliot think that too far. I mean to myself, I'm not a historian. I'm not consider myself as a historian. That way I need to go deeper regarding the subject. But I think also I later in 80s I was in Northwest Minority College. Also we get a chance to learn Tibetan history from a Chinese historian, really big scholar. He also said that Tubo, that pronunciation Tubo. That's why, I mean, right now is 2 pronunciations. And probably if I were a historian, I need to go to read Elliot and to go deeper. Then I need to accept who is which is more reasonable. It's this moment I can say, okay, Elliot, you are right. But one thing is, Elliot is not easily convinced person. Yeah, that I believe. When he makes some statement, he got a really strong reason. Otherwise, it will not exist. Now, my let's say, if I were a historian, I will investigate his reason, and then I'm thinking, not only me. There are a lot of Tibetan historians in China, also Chinese historians in China. All of them, Tupo changed to Tufan. That's big, let's say, event. But I did see something recently, coincidentally. I went accidentally. I checked something. Then I saw when another Chinese young person also see these two boys should not be poor, should be fat. That's right. That only that character, only that place then pronounced as a poor in the two boys. In that place. Otherwise, always fat. Yeah. That one thing, and if I just say Elliot, the Elliot and Elliot successful, that's really big change for, let's say, reverse generations pronunciation back to fast. That's one thing. And then from this article, I got another, let's say, sample. Idea is that not like me, as a Tibetan, even we Tibetan as a political country, we fall apart. Now in five provinces falling, and there is no. We have several terms for cover all of the areas. We say Goyi is okay, Tibetan land. Still we can cover all the areas. We say Goyikam also fine. But Goyijong is not fine now because the TAR's name. But in Chinese, we don't have that term. For me, till now, didn't notice that. And then I read this Elliot's article. Then he said, Xizang right now is one big term is Xizang. And then he pointed out that Zhang is actually part of central Tibet that originates from there. That way that Xizang, that Zhang cover all Tibetan, that's not reasonable. Now we need another name could cover all of the Tibetan, let's say, the culture spread over that area. Yeah, that's really something new to think. And he said, Tumbota is good name for cover all this area. And the people already started and use this term, not so many, but few people already started using it as a term for cover all, Chinese term, cover all these areas. This is also not so new. The 12th century, everybody knows, I think Sakya Pemstat, he went to China. Then he sent back a letter to Tibet. And in that letter said, all people who speak Tibetan. Yeah, and that's right. Before, long time ago, we didn't have a really good term to cover all the Tibetan areas. That way, I mean that problem is continue, and Elliot has a new proposal to how to give a name for all these places. And that's pretty much I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we will be moving on to our final speaker. And this is Agata Starinska from the Institute of Oriental Studies at the University of Warsaw in Poland.
Hello everyone, I'll just switch over my... Let me add some personal notices at the very end. And I will start from the topic, which is Elliot Sperling's engagement in work cooperation with the Faculty of Oriental Studies of the University of Warsaw. And his engagement that was very, very valuable for us. And speaking about scholars in general, once I heard from my professor, he divided scholars into two categories. He said the one category are those that are writing very thick books, and the other one is those who are writing short notices, articles, sometimes footnotes, but all of them matter more than sometimes those thick books. And I think really Elliot was such a scholar who was always working with such dedication to the subject, in depth, and always basing himself on sources. We heard it from several of us. We acknowledge that as very important especially for historical studies. Another feature that is very important for me was the fact that he was always extremely honest with his findings. So he was non-compromising, even though some people thought that some of his results of his research might not be very useful for the Tibetan course. He always thought that it was important to say what was the truth that he found. So I would like to show only on the examples taken from his publications connected with cooperation with Poland. This is this journal that is very difficult to pronounce the title for anyone who knows Polish. It's easy, but for all the others it's quite difficult. Rocznik Orientalistyczny. You might have noticed that Elliot was very fluent in pronouncing it, and he was very proud of saying it, this exotic name. So I will also pass this to you. So these were the latest of his articles that were published in Rocznik Orientalistyczny. And although we knew each other for much longer time, but I would like to speak now about his, as I said, cooperation with, in a way, two institutions. One was the Committee of Oriental Studies of the Polish Academy of Sciences, and the other one was the University of Warsaw, Faculty of Oriental Studies, and especially Department of Inner Asian Peoples. And in our faculty, this Inner Asian Peoples, actually this covers a program of Mongolian and Tibetan studies. So we started to organize conferences of a committee of Oriental Studies of the Polish Academy of Sciences, the one that is abbreviated as KNO. We started in 2008, and at that time mainly we gathered scholars who were of Polish origin. So in that one, Elliot was not participating. But then from the next one, and it was organized every 2 years, Elliot was present at the conference. And you may see that in 2010 he presented a talk, 2012, 2014. Then there was also a conference on Mongolian studies organized at our university, and it was 2015, 2016, and he was even, he submitted also the title for the conference that will be organized in October 2017. So he, in a way, was presenting at our conferences mainly talks connected with the subject between Tibet, seen in the broader context. As usual for Elliot, he was not speaking about Tibet only in focusing on Tibet itself, but going broader. And so between China and all what can be called Mongolian peoples, and including, when we speak about China, the Manchus, all of this area was the area of the field that he was presenting at the conferences in Poland. Most of them were organized in Warsaw, one was organized in Krakow. Now when we look into the subjects that were presented by Elliot at those conferences, we start from the one on Polane and Kanchenne, and the subject was very much product of his work on the sources that were already mentioned today. So that was those who were very much also touching subjects studied by a very great historian, Luciano Petek, and in many cases Elliot was saying that he is following Petek's work, but he is very fortunate to get more sources that were not available for Petek, so he can contribute, and he really did. Those sources that were previously inaccessible for Petek, he was using. Here, what I present on slides are Elliot's abstracts of the article. So this is what he said in his abstracts. And what was interesting, and not always a subject of other Tibetologists' work, was this understanding of Tibet, especially starting from the 17th century, but then 18th century, that Tibet belonged to something what was called a Mongol realm, or a Khanate of Tibet, perhaps not very popular among Tibetologists and the Tibetans, but then again helping to understand the situation and place of Tibet in a broader context. So again today we have already heard about the question of Desi Gyatso's paternity, and the source that was used, this Lalong Shepe Dorje's autobiography, is one of the sources that were new, that Elliot was using and reading very carefully in detail, and then giving us new understanding of the sources. And here again, what was said before, there is this mentioning of the rumor about the Sisangis Gyatso's origin, but then it is explained by Elliot in the article that it was a rumor. So Lalunshi Kadorje is repeating this rumor, but clearly stating that it's a rumor, it's not the fact. And then Elliot is presenting the chronology showing that it was not possible to be the fact. The article that has been mentioned today about the rise of the great man was the result of a study of biography of Polanyi, and we heard several pieces from this biography translated in the great work done by students of Elliot who were able to present this work. Now, again, we have here this information about the Manchu-Mongol order within which Polanyi and Tibet existed. So, in the field of Tibeto-Mongolian studies, or in the field of studies of relationship between Tibet and the Mongols, Tibet-Mongols under the Manchus, under the Qing dynasty. Elliot's studies were very, very important. The results of his studies were by us who are following his work, because they really show the way it should be done, so that the sources should be read very carefully, and showing in this very article, I think Federica already said all what is in it, but Elliot was very much focused on the modernity, and I think it also touches the point that was said by Tsering Shakya, that the Tibetans can be empowered by knowing their own history. And this is one of such pieces that can be very influential and can be empowering if it is read properly and if it is understood and analyzed in the right way. Now, the Junger Retreat is the article that Elliot was supposed to submit to the publication that is going to be released this year. So unfortunately we are left only with the abstract. But again, it touches the subject of this very moment when Tibet was incorporated into the Qing realm, and how it was done, and what was the role of Polanyi and Kangchenna. In this very article, again, it was some kind of pride that the Tibetans could take from the fact that Kangchenna was able to be very successful in his battles, and again that although we know how the history followed, nevertheless knowing details about this history can be very inspiring. The one that was again presented in 2016, and again we are left only with the abstract. I think this, although it goes back into the Ming period of Tibetan history, I think this article could have been very important for our modern understanding of the situation, and especially of the modern Chinese state, as it is said here, in envisioning one part of its economic, diplomatic, and even military plans for the future, as linking the central Eurasian Silk Road with its near and not so near maritime regions. Because Elliot was showing that already in the Ming times, the same people from the Ming bureaucracy that dealt with Tibet were dealing also with sea-going exploration. So it shows the linkage, and it shows that actually Chinese policy today is very much linked with the past. I think that probably it could have been a very, very important and influential article. Now, as we go back to the history and also my personal history, I met Elliot first time in '89 at the conference in Narita, at the IELTS conference. I think you can see from the pictures, Elliot was not changing at all. He was always looking the same, with the same wonderful smile, and with his colleagues, with whom he was always discussing things. We know Elliot was extremely talkative, but it was not just talking about nothing. It was always bringing us very important information, and through discussion with him we were all learning. For the Polish side, we were very fortunate to have him coming to Warsaw. Not so many scholars do, and he did, and he served also for our students whenever we needed sources. He served also publishing in Rocznik Orientalistyczny, that was becoming more known perhaps abroad. These pictures from the conference that was organized in Delhi in 2009, some of them were, I think, taken even by Elliot's camera, and some others by mine, and I found them just recently. And in Bergen, again, we had talks. We were discussing issues always connected with Tibet in very different aspects, and very different aspects in different contexts. Tibet was placed thanks to enormous knowledge of Elliot, linking things that nobody else was somehow inventing before him, that it's such a possibility, such potentials to look at things from his point of view. So I'm extremely grateful that I was able to be also a disciple, a friend of Elliot. I was at Indiana University in 2000 for exchange program between the University of Warsaw and Indiana University. So in a way I'm back at home, but of course we would have liked to meet a completely different occasion. Thank you very much.